I thought I knew what danger looked like. After 31 years as a firefighter in Nashville, I'd seen it wear every face imaginable. Fire, smoke, collapsed ceilings, men who panicked and made everything worse. I believed I could recognize it anywhere. I was wrong. Danger, I learned, can wear a tailored suit and smile at your daughter like she's the only woman in the world. Welcome, everyone. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from, and whether you think a father has the right to trust his gut when everyone else thinks he's losing his mind. My name is Robert Calloway. I'm 62 years old, retired 3 years now, and what I'm about to tell you is the truest thing I have ever spoken out loud. My daughter Claire is 31. She has her mother's eyes and her mother's stubbornness, which is the highest compliment I know how to give. Her mother passed 6 years ago, breast cancer, and the two of us rebuilt ourselves around that wound the way you patch a wall after a fire, carefully, slowly, praying the structure still holds. Claire became a physical therapist. I grew tomatoes in the backyard and pretended that was enough. We had Sunday dinners every week without fail. That was our agreement. That was the rope we used to pull each other forward. When she told me about Marcus Webb, she was glowing in a way I hadn't seen since before her mother got sick. He was a financial advisor, successful, 42 years old, ran his own firm downtown, dressed like someone who understood money and knew exactly where to put it. He shook my hand the first time we met and looked me in the eye, and I thought, this is the man my daughter chose. I should be grateful. I told myself that for months. They got engaged in February, married in April. Claire said she didn't want a long engagement. Marcus said the same. I remember thinking that was romantic. Two people so sure of each other they didn't want to waste a single day. I told myself that too. We were celebrating their first month of marriage at the Patterson House, one of those Nashville restaurants where the tables are dark wood and the candles are real and the whiskey menu is longer than most novels. Claire had reserved a corner booth. She was wearing a green dress and her hair was down, and she laughed at something Marcus said before I even sat down, and I felt, for just a moment, that the world was exactly as it should be. Then Marcus's phone buzzed against the table. He glanced at it. His expression didn't change, not exactly, but something shifted behind his eyes the way the air shifts before a storm rolls in. You don't spend 3 decades walking into burning buildings without learning to read the moment before everything breaks open. Important client, he said, apologetic smile, finger already raised to signal the waiter. Give me 5 minutes. He kissed Claire on the cheek and walked toward the front of the restaurant, phone already to his ear. Claire watched him go with that soft look she'd had since February. She turned to me and started talking about the house they were looking at in East Nashville, a craftsman with a wide porch and an old oak in the backyard. She said Marcus had found it. Said he'd been handling all the details since the wedding because she was swamped with new patients and he wanted to take things off her plate. I nodded. I drank my water. Something nagged at the back of my neck like a splinter you can't quite reach. That's when I noticed the woman at the bar. She'd been sitting alone when we arrived, nursing something amber and not drinking it. Mid-50s, cardigan, the kind of face that looked like it used to smile easily. She was watching our table, not glancing watching. The moment Marcus stepped away, she put money on the bar without asking for the check and walked directly to us. She sat down in Marcus's empty chair. Claire blinked. The woman put a folded napkin in my hand. Her fingers were cold. She leaned close enough that I could smell her perfume, something floral and faded, and she said, very quietly, very clearly, he did this to my niece. Check everything she's signed since the wedding. You have maybe a week before it's too late. Then she stood and walked straight to the exit without looking back. Claire stared at me. What was that? Who was she? I looked at the napkin, a phone number, and a single line of text. Sandra Pruitt. Google her husband. Google what happened to her. I looked at my daughter's face, open and confused and trusting. And then I looked toward the front of the restaurant where Marcus was still talking. Back to us, one hand in his pocket. Claire, I said, I need you to listen to me right now, and I need you to do exactly what I say. She started to object. I put my hand over hers. Do you trust me? She went still. She heard something in my voice she recognized. She nodded. We're leaving. Right now. Smile. Pick up your purse. And walk with me to the side. Exit like we're going to look at something outside. Do not look at Marcus. She did it. She trusted me the way she trusted me when she was 8, and I told her to crawl under the smoke, and she did it without asking why. We slipped out through the side door into the warm May evening, and I flagged down a cab before she could catch her breath. In the back seat, she turned to me with wide eyes. "Dad, Marcus is going to be furious. He's going to come out, and we'll be gone, and I don't even know what I'm going to tell him." "Tell him you had a headache," I said. "Sudden one. I'll handle the rest." My phone was already searching. Sandra Pruitt, Nashville. It took less than 30 seconds. Sandra Pruitt, 44, had married a man named Dennis Pruitt 4 years ago. Financial advisor. His own firm. Dennis Pruitt was found dead of an apparent heart attack 18 months after the wedding. Sandra Pruitt had died in a car accident 8 months before that. A winding road outside of Franklin. Guardrail failure. By the time Dennis died, everything Sandra had owned, her house, her investment accounts, the money she'd inherited from her parents, was already in Dennis Pruitt's name. Every document signed and notarized in the 3 months after the wedding. Dennis Pruitt had since relocated to Nashville under the name Marcus Webb. I sat in that cab with my daughter beside me, and I felt something I had not felt since the worst nights in the firehouse. A cold that has nothing to do with temperature. Claire's apartment was the safe option. Marcus had a key to their house. I took her to my place instead. The small brick house on Elmwood, where she grew up, where her mother's garden still came back every spring on its own. She sat at the kitchen table in her green dress, and I made coffee neither of us wanted, and I put my phone between us and let her read. She read it twice. Then she put her hands flat on the table and looked at the wall. I said nothing. "Some things need room," finally she said. "The insurance paperwork. He brought it 2 weeks after the wedding. Said we needed to update our beneficiaries now that we were married. I signed everything." "How many documents?" She closed her eyes. 6, maybe 7. He had them ready. He said his assistant had prepared everything because Marcus was thorough. That was how he was. He liked things handled. Her voice broke on the last word. Not crying. Something harder than crying. Understanding. "I need to see my accounts," she said. She opened her laptop with hands that were very steady, and I was proud of her in that moment in a way that hurt. She logged in. The first account looked normal. The second showed a pending transfer, $40,000, scheduled for the following morning to a routing number she didn't recognize. The third showed a change of beneficiary dated 3 weeks ago. She hadn't requested it. Her name was still on the account. Someone else's was underneath it. "Dad, I know. How do I not know how this happened? Because you trusted him." I said it gently. "That's not a mistake. That's who you are. He chose you because of it." Her phone lit up on the table. "Marcus." She looked at me. I picked it up. "Hey, Marcus," I said, Vernon speaking. Sorry, Robert. Claire's not feeling well. She's resting at my place." A pause. 1 beat too long. "Is she all right?" I was worried when I came back to the table. "Just a bad headache," came on fast. "You know how she gets. She'll call you in the morning." Another pause. His voice was warm, concerned, perfectly calibrated. "Of course. Take care of her. She means everything to me." I set the phone face down, and we sat in the quiet of my kitchen, and I thought about the woman at the bar and the napkin in my pocket and the name Sandra Pruitt. The number on the napkin rang twice before a woman answered. Her voice was cautious, worn thin at the edges. "Is this Robert?" she said. "Yes, ma'am." She exhaled. "My name is Evelyn Torres. Sandra Pruitt was my niece. The woman who gave you that napkin tonight was my sister. We've been watching Marcus Webb for 8 months. We couldn't go to the police. We had nothing solid enough, and he knew it. So we started watching for his next one. Your daughter," she said. "Tell her not to go home. Tell her not to sign anything else." "We need real evidence," I said. "Enough that can't be brushed away." "Then you need his records." Evelyn's voice steadied. "He keeps everything. Has too many accounts, too many names, too many transactions to carry in his head. His firm's filing system, physical and digital both." "Where?" "His office. 8th floor of the Gulch Tower downtown. He'll be there tomorrow morning by 7. He always is the day after he moves money. Checks and double checks." That night I did not sleep. I sat in the living room while Claire slept in her old room, and I worked through what I knew and what I needed. I was a firefighter, not a detective, but I understood one thing deeply. You do not wait for the fire to reach you. You go to it on your terms. By 5 in the morning I had a plan. It was not elegant, But 31 years of emergency work teaches you that elegant plans belong to people who have never actually been in an emergency. Claire was awake when I came to check on her, sitting on the edge of the bed in the gray pre-dawn, already dressed. "I'm coming with you," she said. "No, Dad." She looked at me the way her mother used to look at me when I was being stubborn about something I was going to lose. "He targeted me. Those are my accounts. My signature on those documents. I'm coming with you." I looked at her for a long moment. "You stay behind me when I tell you to," I said. "Always," she said. "But I'm coming." The Gulch Tower lobby opened at 6:30 for cleaning staff and early access tenants. I had spent enough years coordinating with building management during emergencies to know how those systems worked: service elevators, maintenance logs, the way a man in a vest with a clipboard could walk through most buildings in America without being questioned. We went in through the parking structure. Claire had Marcus's firm suite number from a business card in her purse. 8th floor, suite 804. The office was unlocked. That surprised me for half a second before I understood. A man who believed he had nothing to fear from his wife was not a man who checked his locks twice. Claire went to the desktop while I went to the filing cabinet along the left wall. The cabinet was locked. I took out the small tension wrench I'd brought. 20 years of dealing with jammed equipment teaches you to carry the right tools, and had it open in 40 seconds. The files inside were organized by year. Within each year, by name. 12 names over 6 years. Each folder thick with notarized documents, property transfers, insurance policies, death certificates. Clean, careful, complete. The record of a man who took pride in his work. "Dad." Claire's voice was very quiet. "Come look at this." The desktop was logged in. Marcus had not logged out the night before, which meant either he was careless or he had already decided he didn't need to be careful anymore. On the screen was a spreadsheet. Names in one column. Asset values in another, dates in a third, status in a fourth. 11 entries marked closed, 1 marked active. Claire Calloway. $380,000. Method, staged accident vehicle. Timeline, 14 days. Claire stared at the screen without speaking for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone and started photographing everything. I was doing the same with the physical files. Working fast. Systematic. The way you work when time is the thing you have least of. We were on the second cabinet when the elevator dinged in the hallway. Claire looked at me. "Keep copying," I said. I moved to the office door, staying out of the line of sight from the hall window. Footsteps. 2 sets. One I didn't recognize. The other I did. Marcus Webb did not look like a man worried about anything. He was talking quietly to someone on his left. A woman in her 50s, business clothes, silver hair pulled back. His mother, I guessed from the ease between them, the familiar way they leaned together. He had his phone to his ear and his briefcase in his other hand, and he was smiling. I stepped into the hallway. His smile didn't fall. That was what I noticed first. It shifted, recalibrated, became something else without disappearing entirely. He was good, very good. "Robert," he said, "this is a surprise." "I imagine it is." The woman beside him, his mother, looked between us with sharp eyes. "No alarm, just assessment. I want to talk to you about the documents Claire signed," I said. "About Dennis Pruitt and Sandra Webb, and the 11 other names in your filing cabinet." Something moved through him. Quick, controlled, gone. "I don't know what you've been told," he said, voice still warm, still measured. "But you're in a private office without permission, and I'd strongly suggest—" Claire appeared in the doorway behind me with her phone. "I've got everything," she said. "Files, spreadsheets, account transfers, all backed up to cloud storage already." Marcus looked at her. The warmth in his face changed quality, became something colder wearing the same expression. His mother spoke for the first time. Her voice was precise and calm. "You've made a very significant mistake," she said. "Both of you." She opened her briefcase. I thought, for 1 second, she was reaching for a phone. She pulled out a folder and held it out toward me. "Read the top page," she said. I didn't take it. Claire did. She read it. Her face changed. "Dad." The top page was a court order. Evelyn Torres, plaintiff, witness. A sealed investigation into Marcus Webb, real name Dennis Pruitt, authorized 8 months prior by a federal judge in the Middle District of Tennessee, and at the bottom, an authorization signature. Special Agent Carol Webb, FBI Financial Crimes Division. I looked at the woman with the silver hair. She's not his mother, Claire said quietly. I'm his handler, the woman said. I've been undercover inside his operation for 8 months. We've been building a federal case. Every document, every transaction, every name in that cabinet is part of an evidence chain that has been cataloged and authenticated. She looked at me directly, and something in her expression was almost admiration. What you two just did in the last 10 minutes could have compromised 18 months of federal investigation. The silence was the loudest I had ever heard. Marcus Dennis stood perfectly still, watching the agent beside him with an expression that was no longer anything close to warm. He understood what was happening before I did. She stepped aside, and 2 men in dark windbreakers came through the stairwell door. Dennis Pruitt, she said, you are under arrest for wire fraud, identity fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, and 6 counts of first-degree homicide across 3 jurisdictions. She kept her voice level, like she was reading a grocery list. His composure held for another breath. Then it didn't. You can't, we had a deal. His voice was flat and stripped of everything. We discussed terms. You said if I cooperated. You cooperated with our investigation, she said. You did not, at any point, stop actively planning to harm your wife. 14 days, Mr. Pruitt. That's what the timeline in your own spreadsheet said. The 2 agents came forward. Marcus looked at Claire once as the handcuffs went on. She looked back at him without flinching, and I have never in my life been more proud of anyone. The agent Carol Webb was not her real name. She told us later. But it was the name she used for the case, spent 2 hours with us in a conference room on the floor above. She explained it in layers, the way you explain a complicated structure after it's burned. The investigation had begun with a tip from Evelyn Torres, who had spent 3 years building a paper trail after her niece Sandra died. The FBI had been watching Dennis Pruitt for 14 months. They had placed Agent Webb in his orbit as a consultant 18 months ago. She had been the woman at the restaurant. She had given me that napkin on purpose. I stared at her. You needed to move, she said. He was accelerating the timeline. We couldn't tip our hand officially, but we needed the wife out of the house. A father showing up with evidence was the cleanest way to make that happen without him running. You used us, Claire said. She considered that honestly. I put you in a situation where your own investigation would help both of you and ultimately stop him before he hurt anyone else. I kept you as safe as I could while doing it. Was Evelyn Torres really Sandra's aunt? I asked. Yes. That part was real. She paused. She found us. Not the other way around. I thought about Sandra Pruitt, about the 11 names in those folders, about the woman who sat alone at a bar and put a cold napkin in my hand and walked away without looking back, because she had been doing this long enough to know that some prayers take strange forms. Dennis Pruitt was arraigned that afternoon. He faced charges in Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida. His mother, his actual mother, turned out to be a retired notary who had legitimized every document in those folders. She was arrested at her home in Brentwood before noon. Evelyn Torres sat in our kitchen that evening. She was smaller in person than she had seemed on the phone, older around the eyes. She held her coffee cup with both hands and looked at Claire and said, very quietly, Sandra would have liked you. Claire covered her hands with hers and didn't let go. I stood at the window and looked out at the backyard where my tomatoes were coming in, fat and red and completely unconcerned with any of it, and I thought about the morning 6 years ago when we buried Margaret, Claire's mother, my wife of 28 years, and how Claire had put her hand in mine at the graveside and said, "We're going to be okay, Daddy." And how I had believed her because I had needed to. We are okay, I thought. We kept being okay. That evening, after Evelyn left and Claire was asleep in her old room again, I sat in my chair and I thought about everything I should have caught. The rushed engagement, the paperwork Marcus always had ready, the way he steered conversations away from finances without ever being obvious about it, the way he positioned himself between Claire and every decision. None of those things, individually, would have told me anything definitive. All of them together, looked at in the right light, told a story I should have read sooner. I'm not telling you this because I'm a hero. I'm not. I'm a retired firefighter who grows tomatoes and has Sunday dinner with his daughter, and got very lucky that a federal agent decided I was the right tool for the job at the right moment. I'm telling you this because of what I learned. Pay attention when something nags at the back of your neck. 31 years of running into burning buildings taught me that the building always tells you something before it falls. You have to learn to listen before the noise gets loud. When someone rushes the paperwork, ask why. When someone handles all the details, ask what those details actually say. Love is not a reason to stop asking questions. Love is exactly the reason you ask them. My daughter came home to find someone who wanted to erase her. She walked out of it because she trusted her father, and because her father trusted a cold hand and a folded napkin, and 31 years of knowing what the air feels like before things break open. Claire is in her own apartment now. A good one. In a neighborhood she chose herself, with a lease only in her name. She calls me every Sunday. She still comes for dinner. Last week she brought tomatoes from the farmer's market and set them next to mine on the counter, and we stood there looking at them like they were something remarkable. They were, actually. They were evidence that the ordinary continues. That Sunday still comes. That a father and his daughter can stand in a kitchen after everything and talk about nothing important and mean everything by it. To every father watching this, trust what you feel when something is wrong. You are not being paranoid. You are not being controlling. You are being a father, which is a job that does not retire just because the title changes. Evil depends on good people being too polite to speak up, on fathers telling themselves they're overreacting, on daughters trusting paperwork they never read because the man they loved said it was fine. Don't be too polite. Ask the hard question. Make them explain it. A man with nothing to hide will explain it without hesitation. A man with everything to hide will tell you that you're being paranoid. Sandra Pruitt was 44 years old. She had her aunt's eyes, Evelyn told me, and she laughed too loud at her own jokes, and she made the best banana bread in Davidson County, and she trusted a man who wore a good suit and shook hands like he meant it. She deserved better. All 11 of them deserved better. If this story reached you, if any part of it sounded familiar, if you have a daughter or a son or a sibling and something in you has been nagging quietly and you've been telling yourself you're overreacting, you are not overreacting. Listen to that voice. Ask the question. Pull the napkin from your pocket and read what's written on it. The people we love cannot always see the danger clearly. Sometimes they need us to see it for them. That is not weakness. That is what family is for. Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from tonight. And tell me, if you were sitting at that table and a stranger put something in your hand, would you have listened? I'd really like to know. Subscribe to sr-sweetrevenge for more true stories like this one. There are more, there are always more, and every one of them matters.